No, that's okay, we'll make it through here, so. All right.
You can borrow a camera.
That's okay, thanks. All right. Okay, good morning, still morning. Good morning, everyone. Thankfully, we got through the Executive Policy Committee agenda sooner rather than later. It was not a long agenda, so maybe I'll just open up to questions. Cam.
Sure. On the Granite Curling Club, today the motion that you approved, I think, is essentially the same wording as the motion that Property Committee voted on last time, but that failed to pass. So I guess now with this vote, like, what are your thoughts about the concerns that Councillor Lukes raised during the meeting about the process around how the developer has been chosen for this project?
Yeah, well, so that's separate, and that'll be dealt with, later on, separate. What we have today is a vote on the subdivision of rezoning, which was approved unanimously at the Executive Policy Committee with the amendment that actually Councillor Santos had brought forward during the Standing Committee hearing, supported by Councillor Duncan at the time, which in essence says we're approving the subdivision of rezoning, asking our staff to work with Granite Curling Club and the club, the departments, both the Public Works Department and Planning, Property and Development Department, to come up with a solution related to parking. And I believe we can come up with a solution. There will be curling at the Granite Curling Club for years to come. I'm confident of that, and so this is a good motion. It's a good subdivision rezoning where we can have curling coexisting with new housing that's affordable, and that's really important.
David, how will the, I guess, the determination of, whether or not the sustainability of the club has been met, how will that be determined?
Like I said, I really believe that we can come up with a solution. There's a lot of capable people involved here in our departments and with the Granite Curling Club as well. We can come up with a solution related to parking. I am very confident there will be curling at the Granite Curling Club for many years to come. I want to see that. Our staff will do all they can to ensure that we get to a place where we can find a solution that works for everybody, to have the housing, to have the parking needed for the Granite Curling Club so the operations of the club are not impacted.
What are some of the parking solutions you would like to see considered? Like, do you have in mind that?
Yeah, I don't have any specific solutions in mind, but I do know that, the Granite Curling Club sits right across the street from, parking lots that have a lot of stalls that I think are used primarily through the day. I believe they belong to Canada Life at this time. That may be an option that could be explored, but again, we're asking our staff to work with the Granite Curling Club folks and other property owners in the area to come up with a solution. And I believe we can come up with a solution that works for everybody.
Now, this vote didn't take quite as long as the one at Property Committee, but we heard from a lot of
What are you
people.
saying, Cameron? Anyways.
I'm saying that you got through this job, or through this meeting much quicker than before. Good job.
They can go back for 10 more hours if you want.
It's easier for your deadlines.
Yeah, this is much better. But what did you make of that? The fact that there were so many people on both sides coming out and speaking about this. Clearly, there's not a lot of agreement at the moment between the two parties. How are we going to bridge that?
Actually, I don't think we're as far apart as some may think. Those that are really proponents of the Granite Curling Club operations want to make sure that the curling club continues for years to come. I agree. And Granite will continue to operate as a curling club for many, many years to come. It's got a great history and a very promising future. We're going to make sure of that. There's also an opportunity right now to build housing on that site next to the Granite Curling Club at a time where we need more housing and we need affordable housing, and that's exactly what this project can represent, and this site can represent. So I think this is a situation where there can be wins all around, and we can find solutions that work for everybody. I'm very confident of that, and I know that will happen.
I just want to ask one more. Like, obviously, this still has one more vote going to council. Are you confident? Have you had feedback from councillors who wanted something like this at EPC?
Because it's a hearing, I haven't been talking to councillors about this matter.
Okay.
I think what we came up with today at Executive Policy Committee I credit Councillors Santos and Duncan for coming up with what I think is a reasonable solution that can meet the needs and address the concerns that all parties have. And I hope that by the time we get to council, I hope that other councillors see this as a reasonable solution that can meet everybody's needs and get housing built and ensure the ongoing operations of the curling club.
I'm just looking at it from more of a broad view. Should some groups start to expect, because we're so focused on, as a city, affordable housing right now, because that's such a key priority for council, should some organizations expect that they maybe are going to lose some parking spaces, some land around their buildings for that purpose, for affordable housing?
I don't think we can say that yet. We're dealing with things on a case-by-case basis. I think broadly, obviously, with the Housing Accelerator Fund, we have really focused on getting more housing built more quickly. We've made changes to our zoning rules. I think, go back to the decision we made on malls and corridors. That's a very important decision that we made to allow for multifamily mixed-use development on sites where I think they really will accommodate housing projects, where you've got these big, pads that are parking lots, which can, some of those, square footages could be turned into housing and still have ample parking. And so I think that we continue to press forward with needed changes to our zoning bylaws to accommodate more housing. But really, at the end of the day, these are voted on a case-by-case and site-by-site basis. Jeff?
Yeah, I want to change the topic. I guess we're waiting, usually we have by now, we're waiting for our sewer and water rate report, and tied to that, the next cost estimate, the latest cost estimate for, well, I guess it'd be phase 3, but the entire project for the North End Water Pollution Control Center. Can you give us any update on when we could expect that?
It should be coming soon. I know that, staff is getting very, very close to getting that report finalized with the information needed. I can tell you this, that I've said it before, I'm committed to affordability and doing all we can to maintain affordability when it comes to the sewer rates the citizens of Winnipeg have to pay. We're looking at the largest, most complex capital project in the city's history when we're looking at the North End Sewage Treatment Plant. We know it's well over $2.5 billion and could be beyond that. We're waiting on the final report on phase 3, the updated report on phase 3, not the final, pardon me, for the cost estimate. And we're waiting on the sewer rate report. One of the reports that we dealt with today, you heard our staff talk about if we can get this funding through the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund on these two projects, these two applications that our staff is proposing we pursue, that could have a positive impact on future sewer rates by reducing any proposed sewer rates that will be coming forward. And so it's very important that we get access to and approve these Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund applications. I'm calling on all councillors to do all we can to secure the $150 million that the federal government has promised and the $30 million that the provincial government has committed, and the province said there'd be more to come. So we need as a council to do all we can to secure funding from senior levels of government. The Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund report that is before us is a way to access federal and provincial funds.
Beyond that, do you have any indications from the feds of the province that money for phase 3? Or
No.
the cost overruns for phase 2, like, have you got any indications?
The discussions are ongoing on phase 3, both on the balance of phase 2 and on phase 3 as well. I can tell you, sure as I stand here, the North End Water Pollution Control Center is the #1 topic of conversation that I have with the Premier of Manitoba and any federal members of Parliament. I know my staff and our departments, this is at the top of their list in talking to senior levels of government.
And it is budget season on Broadway coming up. Obviously, there's no new, at least I would think municipalities and yourself would say, we haven't seen a new funding formula from the province. We've seen more money, but not what the municipalities in the city of Winnipeg are asking for. And I don't know if there's anything in the throne speech that I saw that gave that a kind of indication to you. Are you holding out hope still that there still could be something in that budget, a new funding formula for municipalities?
I ultimately would like to see a new funding formula for municipalities for the city of Winnipeg. But my focus right now is the North End Water Pollution Control Center and getting funding for from the senior levels of government for this project. The North End sewage treatment plant is all about capacity within the city of Winnipeg. We will only be able to add more houses and more businesses and expand the growth of our city if we can have funding for the North End plant and get that plant built.
And I mean, is that, because your focus has to be on that, there's only so much money all levels of government have. With Chief Peguis and Keniston, I mean, those were 2-year big campaign promises. I mean, is that even something that we could see any movement on in a first term, or is that something that's just, are those 2 projects on the back burner?
Well, there's 2 reports that are coming forward, right? And both on Route 90, the Route 90 projects, and Chief Peguis Trail project as well. So waiting on those reports, that's always been part of the plan, is to get the reports and the business case for those projects, and then take those to senior levels of government. What we're working with as well, though, is we're working with federal and provincial governments who have their own priorities. And sometimes it's about identifying the shared priorities that we have as a city, where we share a priority with the province and the federal government. And on the North End Water Pollution Control Center, I think every level of government understands now, yes, it's about saving Lake Winnipeg, for sure. We need to get the plant built to save Lake Winnipeg and to comply with the provincial regulations. But we also need to build the North End plant to accommodate the growth in the city of Winnipeg, to add the capacity that is required to build houses and build businesses.
And for the sewer water rate report, obviously it's several months late now. Is that because the city really needs the other money and doesn't want to show a rate to people that might get changed right away? Like, are you hoping you have a solid answer on both the federal and provincial funding coming through first?
No, ultimately what it's a complex, it's going to be a complex report with a lot of information and a lot to consider. So our staff is making sure that they've got the information that is required to put into the report before the report is released.
And just the CHIF funding, why does the city need to apply for it when it was already promised in a federal statement? I couldn't make sense of that part of the report.
So the CHIF funding, there's 2 things. So the $150 million that the federal government promised has to be funded through, it's a promise to fund, but they need a vehicle or a fund through which to flow the funds. And the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund, provincial and territorial stream, is that channel through which that $150 million will flow. So we need to make application with the province of Manitoba through that fund. The Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund, though, that's a $5 billion stream, the provincial territorial. There's a $1 billion stream that is available to directly to municipalities. And so we are applying to that direct stream for the Southwest Interceptor funding.
It's just the way they said it in their statement made it sound like it was already granted, so it's odd the city has to now go apply for something.
Well, they need a
they said they
vehicle,
already have.
yes, it's their commitment, but there's a vehicle through which it needs to flow, or a fund through which it needs to flow, and this Canada Housing Infrastructure is that fund. Part of what we need to do to access the funds that they've committed is to make application. And so that's what this is. This is approving, making the application to the provincial territorial stream.
And do you have to have the bylaw done for the 4 units, or is just council's promise that, yeah, we're going to get to that enough?
I'll get the details on that. We have to make the commitment. It is one of the conditions to approve the 4 plexus. The June date will be prior to the end of the spring. I know the federal government did say it had to be done in spring. Well, summer starts, June 21st, so we're still within the window. But I'll get you specific details on that, Joanne, okay?
Okay.
I don't have the wording right in front of me.
In terms of the 2 funding streams, I think I heard a question earlier asking whether or not the 2 amounts were stackable, and I don't remember what the answer was.
I don't believe that they are.
Okay.
Nonetheless, you take a look at the water waste projects, even the Southwest Interceptor, that is a project that is required to add the capacity to accommodate the growth in our city. And so by funding, by accessing the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund for a portion of the Southwest Interceptor, that too will have a net positive impact on future sewer rates. Because people will, will have, sewer ratepayers won't have to pay for as much of the cost of the Southwest Interceptor if we can get federal funding for a portion of it.
And then, so there were a couple agenda items, there's a little bit of consent adjournment going on, and I just want to make sure. I think you folks approved the affordable housing plan for Pacific Avenue
Yes,
and the, having city staff run St. B Golf Course?
yes.
Okay.
And a plan for a community club, did that pass?
That passed as well, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
And then, Manwin Hotel, any update on when the city will enforce its vacate order there?
I don't have an update on that.
Okay. And there's no official deadline for people to leave by then?
Not that I know right now. If there is,
Okay.
we can find that out, but not that I know right now.
Okay.
Okay? Thanks all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.